Ronnie Kahn. This is February 2014. I would like to ask you some questions about your life in South Africa, your immigration to the United States, and your life in Dallas. Let's start with where your family originally immigrated from to South Africa, and what can you share about their lives and their early years in South Africa?
My late father, Izzy, known as Isaac Kahn, was brought to South Africa from Russia when he was 2 years old. His parents are obviously Russian. He came from Lithuania, and he grew up in South Africa. He was he was the only child of 6 children that was born in Russia, and he was the oldest. And he had a younger brother, Benny, and 4 sisters. And they all grew up in Johannesburg. They were all born in Johannesburg, other than my father. And my late mother, Rachel Ray Kahn, was born in South Africa, and she had 2 other sisters, Shirley and Anne. They came from a Kalmyk family. And basically we all lived in Johannesburg except for one aunt who lived in Durban and one in Cape Town. So we were very close in terms of cousins. We were very, very close. We were a very close family, and every Shabbat we were all together at one another's house. And there were big Shabbat dinners every single Friday night, and that was after shul. My father was a very disciplined in terms of adhering to all of the regulations of Judaism and the traditions and cultures, and made sure that I was always ready to go to shul. And that was most important to him, that his son sat with him in shul. I was adopted 7 years after my older brother was adopted. I was adopted 7 years later. His name was Stanley Walter Kahn, and I was named Ronald Sidney Kahn. And I went to my late brother and I went to Marist Brothers School and Observatory, and I grew up in St. George's Road, which is also Observatory, 2 streets from the school. It was a private Catholic school. Although it was a private Catholic school, we had Hebrew lessons twice a week. When the Catholics went to catechism, the Jewish boys went to Hebrew lessons. There were 72 of us in the school, out of 790 kids. And the Jewish mothers at Marist Brothers were very actively involved in the school, and made a very nice environment for everybody, and contributed a tremendous amount to Marist Brothers for the Jewish community. And it was a wonderful upbringing, a wonderful school, and a great, great education.
So what made you make the decision to leave South Africa, and what influenced your decision to leave?
What influenced my decision to leave South Africa was the fact that I'd experienced living through a time of rioting where the various groups of Africans were rioting, and in a very violent way. I didn't believe in the apartheid system. At the same time, I couldn't live in a system under black rule simply because I looked at the rest of Africa, and nothing seemed to work well for people that were of European descent. And I didn't want to have children grow up in that environment where there would be turmoil, possibly. If I looked at the rest of Africa, whether it was Mozambique or Uganda or other countries like Angola, where white people were basically massacred, or they just left.
So once you'd made that decision to leave, what was your family's reaction? And were you the first in the family to leave South Africa?
I lost my parents when I was very young. I am now 60 years old. I was born in September 27th, 1953. I am now 60 years old, and I left South Africa when I was 31. My late mother that adopted me died when I was 9, and my late father died when I was 16. And my brother, unfortunately, Stanley, committed suicide a year before I came to live here in 1985.
And what choices did you make about where you wanted to come and live in the United States, and why the United States at all?
I'd considered Israel. I'd also considered Australia. England had a small part, Canada had a small part, and America a fairly major part. Australia was my main choice. However, in those days, in 1985, you had to bring a lot of money with you, or have some kind of academic credentials, which were I didn't have at the time, and some kind of specialization. And I really wanted to go to Australia because it, from what I'd studied in school and understood, it's the most similar country to South Africa. And I wanted to obviously go to an English-speaking country, which would make it a lot easier, because it was hard enough immigrating, and to immigrate to a country where I didn't speak the language would have made it more difficult.
So, what brought you to Dallas? Was it a job? Was it friends?
It was a question of finances. I decided I wasn't allowed to take out much money out of the country at the time, and my first choice was Irvine in California, because I heard a lot of South Africans were there, and we're a close community. But then I realized after doing some research that it was very expensive, and so was the East Coast, and so was the West Coast expensive. And I'd been to Dallas before on 2 occasions, and found the people very, very nice, very, very warm, and the cost of living a whole lot less than the East and West Coast. My late father had done business with a company in San Antonio called the DeWeed Casing Company, where he imported sausage skins to South Africa and supplied the big meat factories in South Africa, Esmore and Escort. And so I was familiar with the company that my father did business with, and visited them a couple of times. So I've been to Texas before, and I really liked Texas, in particularly Dallas, and the cost of living was more in tune with the amount of money that I'd be able to start off with.
So you came alone, and how easy was it to adjust to life in Dallas? Anything stand out as being very difficult or very different from what life in South Africa was?
When I came to live in America, I decided that my background being clothing, I went to a clothing college which was known as the City and Guilds of London, or the Training College for the South African Clothing Institute, in which where we did a course through the City and Guilds of London, which is an internationally recognized certificate in clothing. You could go anywhere in the world with that certificate. And I had a clothing factory, but I realized that coming to America and staying in the clothing business may not be an advantage, because I don't know the way things work here, and I don't know the production requirements, whether they were making stuff in America, whether they were manufacturing goods overseas. I had no idea. And I didn't have the money to start a clothing factory. But I thought carefully and realized that guava pulp, guava juice was something that they don't grow in America. And I found out that they were getting it from Hawaii and Mexico only. And I had friends in South Africa, a very wonderful Italian family that had the largest guava farm producing guavas in Nelspruit. And I went to them and asked them if they wouldn't mind me staying with them on the farm and learning everything I could about guava juice. And they had a whole processing plant on the farm where they produced the end product from picking the fruit off the trees to shipping it in bottles to Nell's Dairy, which was a large dairy company in South Africa. And so I did that and came to America with the hope that I'd be able to sell guava pulp, guava juice to a company. And when I arrived in the United States, I contacted Libby's, which is a division of Nestle Corporation. They asked me to send guava juice samples that were that had no preservatives in it, and pasteurized, but absolutely no preservatives, and free of any additives. And I did, and Lufthansa Airlines shipped that for me. It was the only company, airline, that would do this frozen. It was a special conditions. Libby's received this in their laboratory for testing in Chicago, and found it to be the highest quality guava pulp that they've ever tested, and had no hesitation in purchasing from me. The buyer contacted me from New York. His name was Ronnie Kahn, and asked me if we could supply around 20 containers a month, of which my commission in those days would have been $3,000 a container. And I was so excited. I just arrived in America. They also asked me for apple juice, and they asked me for pineapple juice, for pear juice, and for strawberry juice and orange juice. And I started figuring out there's a possibility I could be selling them 80 to 100 containers a month. They placed their first orders with me for 6 containers to see what the bulk shipment would be like. And 2 days after I got that order, 6 weeks after I arrived in America, I was watching televisions, and complete sanctions were imposed on South Africa. And so everything was cancelled, and I had to go looking for a job in the clothing business, for which I was trained, and landed up working for a Mexican gentleman, Joe Manzanares, downtown Dallas, Texas. And ironically, he was paying me under the table, and worked for him for 2 years, managing his clothing factory. We made uniforms for American Airlines, and we made ladies' accessories for Ginny Johansson, a big ladies' company at the time.
And how welcoming did you find the Dallas community as a new immigrant?
I found them very inviting, for the few that were here, because I was, although there were others from South Africa before me, there weren't a huge amount as there is today. And I thought I was late in coming, but I wasn't so late in coming. There were people that had come maybe 10 years before me, but there were very few of those. And the South African Jewish community and South African community, of which I know people of Afrikaans descent as well as Jewish descent, has grown exponentially, and it's amazing how it has grown. Friends, some were very, very keen to help, and others had probably had too much of trying to help other people, and they didn't show much interest, which didn't bother me really at all. I just made my own way with those that I connected with, and moved on. And it was not easy. I was always worried about finances. I'd arrived in the United States with around just under $8,000 US, and had to buy a car and had no credit, so everything had to be paid for in cash. And but I managed to survive, and met a Jewish girl. Corey Bruck was her maiden name. We met at a Jewish singles meeting, and we ended up getting married, from which comes one of the most wonderful son any father could ever wish to have, and that's my son, Trent Ian Kahn. The Ian is named after my late father, Izzy. And he now lives in California. He's 26 years old, and I'm very proud of him. He's done very, very well.
Ronnie, what South African Jewish cultural traditions have you maintained? Or, for example, food or holidays that you celebrate, or some that you don't follow any longer?
I'm not a religious person at all, although I truly believe that I am Jewish, and I will always remain Jewish. I don't eat unkosher foods. Uh, I don't. I guess that's because I was just brought up that way, and I am not a religious person. I used to go to synagogue on a regular basis. I don't anymore. But my love for Israel will never, ever, ever diminish or die. In fact, it's stronger and stronger than ever before.
And was that fostered growing up? Zionism, was that important to your family when you were growing up?
It was purely of the respect that I have for such a small race of people on this planet, and how incredibly wonderful and resilient they are. They seem to outperform any other culture on earth for the size of people that they are. They contribute more to this planet than any other race of people, any other group of people. And in every field of life, they've won more Nobel Prizes than any other group of people proportionate to their size. Israel is a thriving country with tremendous innovation, and you cannot but admire Israel and what a wonderful people they are.
And Trent, does he share those views about Israel with you, or about Judaism? What has he taken away from you with that respect?
Trent is not a religious person, although he went to religious schools in Dallas. He went to the Jewish Community Center. He went to Akiba, and but I think as many other young children, in this case Jewish children, have grown up knowing that they're Jewish. There's no question about that. They're proud of that. They'll defend that, but they're not. In my case, in my son's case, as with many of his friends, are not that religious, and don't go to shul or synagogue, and but they'll always be Jewish kids. They'll always be Jewish children, and they'll grow up, and their children will probably be the same.
Has Trent ever been back to South Africa?
No, never been back.
And do you still have family in South Africa?
I do. I've got some cousins, and all my aunts have died off, and all my uncles have died off. So there's I have one or two aunts, which are actually because of the I call them aunts because they're actually my first cousins, but because I was adopted late in life, they were so much older than I was.
And what, if anything, do you miss about your life in South Africa?
I miss the freedom that I had growing up, being able to hitchhike throughout the country, go wherever I wanted it, I miss the weather, incredible weather. I miss the food. I miss the Cape. I miss Knysna. I miss Johannesburg and my friends and the way things used to be, which will never be again. I miss the things I used to share with all my friends, the holidays of this, of that, the certain restaurants that we used to go to on a regular basis, and the old movie theatres that we all went to, the 20th century, the Metro, and there's a lot of nostalgia, but I've come to realize that life is gone. We all in America realize that life is no more, it'll never be back. But I was fortunate enough to live that life, very fortunate enough to live that life.
Well, sounds like you have good memories, good positive memories.
I do.
Do you consider yourself an American now, and are you a US citizen?
Yes, I am a US citizen. I do consider myself American.
And what does it mean to you, being an American citizen?
Being an American citizen is that I'm very proud to be an American citizen. I think it has been and still is the greatest country in the world. There is no country that offers the freedom and the safety that the United States offers. And it is my duty to defend this country. Even at my age, I would defend this country with my life, as I would Israel. That would be a tough call between the two.
Are you glad you came here?
Absolutely. When I see the difficulties that are going on in England today with certain groups of people, like the Muslims changing things, I see a lot of people that are in England that live in America telling me that they're glad that they left England, and now that's something to listen to. When people are glad they've left England. And when people have to leave any country because they have to, not because they want to, they just feel it's best for them and their families, then that's sad in a way. That's real sad to have to do that. But I'm glad I came to this country, because I thought to myself in the end, after considering Australia and this one and that one, that I am going to the strongest country in the world. And I've been here for 28 and a half years, 29 years, and I'm 100% American. I could not imagine living anywhere else in the world. Certainly not South Africa. And at my age of 60 years old, I certainly can't imagine living anywhere else in the world. So I'm glad that I came here, and I'm glad that my son was born here. And at least I can pass on in my life and know that I've done the best for him, that he doesn't have to have the difficulties and the instability that he might have one day in South Africa, which unfortunately I do believe is still yet to come.
Well, thank you, Ronnie. Is there anything else you want to add?
That's it. Is there anything else you want to
No,
add?
this is very good. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate it.